Hello and welcome to a very different Premier League preview, it has to be said, because we've just finished watching a Premier League game. And it would be rude of us, bearing in mind we're going to look forward to quite a hectic Premier League schedule coming up this weekend. It would be a bit rude of us not to comment on the game that we've just watched. Now, I'm taking it, Geo, that you were tuning in to the Manchester derby and not the Wolves-Arsenal game, which finished 3-1 to Wolves. You were watching the Man City game, right?
I did indeed tune into that one.
Yeah, well, to give it a bit of context, we're going to be predicting the games this weekend. What did you take from that, mate?
United wasn't as bad as what we've seen against Everton, but it's still not sort of up to scratch, and more questions for Ole to answer than he's got answers there. And City take one step closer to win the title, if you like. I think a lot of people thought, well, Liverpool fans have been praying United would have turned up for this, given it a Manchester derby. But games are running out. There's only 3 games left now. Liverpool will be looking at City's fixtures and thinking, can one of them do us a favour? It's not looking likely.
No, and I think they did turn up, actually. But that's about as good as it gets when they turn up. I think you've got to say they had a very lucky win against us, Man U. Apart from that, they've looked absolutely appalling. For those of you that haven't didn't tune down to the result, it was 2-0 to Man City. I'd say a comfortable 2-0. But just looking at it when I was watching it, I was thinking, well, you know what? There's not a single Manchester United player that would get anywhere near that Manchester City team. And the manager, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is clearly nowhere near as good a manager as Pep Guardiola. So they got worse players. They got a worse manager. And for that, I think you're probably going to have to look at the hierarchy. That's Edward Woodward. It surely has to fall on his shoulders, because the history of the game is littered with examples of caretaker managers that were given the job and have failed. And it's not hindsight. I said on this very channel, act in haste, repent at leisure. They really should have taken his time, because not only is he not as good as Guardiola, I think Solskjaer certainly isn't as good as Klopp, certainly isn't as good as Pochettino. So a club like Manchester United having a bunch of players and a manager that's not as good, they did turn up tonight, but it just ain't good enough for them. And I think City and Liverpool are way ahead. The other game, Gio, did you keep your eye on the? Obviously, I know we know the score line. Did you keep your eye on the goal scorers? How the game panned out?
I've seen the goal scorers, but I've not seen I've seen Neves' goal, his free kick, another worldie by Neves. His stock rises in the world of football, but I didn't see any of the highlights as yet. We tuned in the wrong game, I think.
I think we did, didn't we? And Mustafi, the only thing I saw was Mustafi scored an own goal at the end. I knew that much.
I didn't even notice that. I thought it finished 3-1. I thought, did they get another one?
Well, no, I thought it was 3-1. It flashed up. Maybe it was my dodgy television or something. I thought it said Mustafi own goal. Who knows? I could click on it and find out. I can't be bothered, though, because we're here to look forward at the upcoming fixtures. And it's hotting up. The league is hotting up. Obviously, there's 2 relegation places that have already been taken care of. But the league is nip and tuck. As you say, Liverpool would have been looking at that tonight, desperate for Man United to do them a favour, as if they would do such a thing. It's a really, really good Premier League, and it's just 2 teams head and shoulders above the rest. And of course, we've had some midweek fixtures, haven't we, as well, which is, may well be quite telling. But the first fixture this weekend is actually the Friday night fixture. It's Liverpool against Huddersfield, a stroll in the park for Liverpool, Geo, surely.
You would assume so. I mean, it's surely, but against Cardiff at the weekend, I watched that game. Cardiff had Liverpool rattled for the first half anyway. Cardiff done their homework. They knew what they were doing. They were sitting in. They were looking to counter attack, and they were getting a bit of luck against Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back. They were going for his sort of inexperience, if you like, and it was working. But they sort of stopped doing that after half an hour for some reason. And a bit like Man City against Man U tonight, there was nerves in the team. But once they got a bit composed, once they got the foot on the ball and they just calmed things down a bit, their quality shone through. I think on Friday, once Liverpool get the first one, I think the floodgates will open. I think the atmosphere will get cranked up. But until that first one goes in, I think the fans will be a bit nervous. I think the players will be a little bit nervous. But, there's strong rumours going around tonight on social media that Van Dijk's won PFA Player of the Year, and that award, I believe, is tomorrow night. So he'll get that before Friday night's games. That just adds a little bit more morale boost, confidence, etc. going into that one. So yeah, an easy win for Liverpool.
Yeah, not a bad choice for PFA Player of the Year, I think, as well. I think he's consistently been Liverpool's best player throughout the season. Salah's obviously come back to form. I think Fabinho, they found a position for Fabinho now, which was obviously the position he was earmarked for, but I do think he's providing some really good cover there now. It's sort of liberated Jordan Henderson to go forward and get involved a little bit more in the attacking part of the play. Salah coming back to form, a dangerous front three. It's got to be a Liverpool win for me on this one. Now, the game Saturday, early kickoff Saturday, is Tottenham Hotspur against West Ham United. We will be dealing with that tomorrow night over on our other Hammers Chat channel. We're kicking off, when I say we, I mean Hammers Chat. We're kicking off our preview at 7 o'clock, Geo, right?
Yeah, 7 p.m. early one tomorrow night.
Absolutely. So we will not discuss that any further here. If you want to find out mine and Gio's opinion on that, then tune in tomorrow at 7 o'clock sharp. The 3 o'clock kickoffs. The first one I've got on my list here, Crystal Palace against Everton. Very, very interesting fixture here. Don't know if anybody saw Crystal Palace play. They're in good form, and their most recent win, Christian Benteke, was absolutely pivotal. He scored a goal, his first goal in, I don't know, in ages, since something BC.
A year.
There you go. I know it was a long, long time, but also he was pivotal, I think, in Zaha's goal with a flick on as well. I'll be reticent to say back to his Aston Villa best, but for a long part of this season, Crystal Palace have cried out for a striker. They brought Batshuayi in. They were looking for Connor Wickham to come back. They tried Ayew in there a few times, but they're looking good. And coming up against an Everton team who are also looking good. He's after coming under a bit of pressure. Silva's got his tail up and got Everton playing really well. Two teams who are doing quite well, Gia.
Yeah, but Palace have now sort of confirmed they're staying up mathematically. So you'd think, will they take the foot off the gas a little bit? But Zaha, if he's coming out, I don't know if he's come out himself and said, there's a lot of reports going around that he wants a move in the summer to a Champions League club. He's got to turn up and sort of prove he's good enough. He did it at the Emirates, but he's got 3 more games essentially to audition for a top 6 club move, if you like. It's a hard game to call, this one, actually. Everton are in fine form. They were fantastic against Man United, though. Silva's got he's finally worked out his best 11. With Charlison on the right-hand side's working. Sigurdsson, he's getting the best out. I mean, they can get a striker. Calvin-Lewin's not the answer up front for Everton. And they can get a striker in the summer. They'll be a serious force next year, providing they can replace Andre Gomez, because he'll be a big miss if he doesn't go back to Goodison Park.
Yeah, just you alluding to Wilfried Zaha there, that certainly wasn't rumour or speculation. He did a double-page article in the newspaper. It was an interview, so he wasn't misinterpreted or misquoted. He very much alluded to the fact that it was time to get going, and he spoke about his time at Manchester United, and he wanted to play for a Champions League club, I think were his precise words. So there you go. So obviously it'll be a massive Mr. Crystal Palace, because he's one of the best attacking players outside of the sort of top 6 teams, certainly. I'm gonna go. I think they could put a spanner in the works. I know what you're saying about they've made it safe, but I just wonder if Roy Hodgson takes the shackles off. They do have some. They've got a lot of pace, Crystal Palace, but I totally agree with what you say. Seems to have them working hard now, Everton. They've been keeping some clean sheets as well, and I think it might be a draw. I think Crystal Palace can get a home draw out of this one. Next up, we got Fulham Cardiff. Already relegated Fulham. Did that liberate them? Did that enable them to start playing better, to get a win? To Scott Parker sort of started to get something out of the team. I saw a few clips of that, and Sessegnon was cutting in from the right. I noticed he was playing on the right. Looked very dangerous, looked very good. But Cardiff, as you alluded to, the results might not have gone their way. But they are, as ever, you'd expect from any Neil Warnock team, they're putting in some hard shifts. And obviously, they feel from a couple of games ago, certainly Neil Warnock does, that they've not had the rub of the green from the officials. Cardiff will still very much be looking ahead of them and thinking that they can escape the relegation zone, Gio.
Yeah, I think this is their last chance. I think this game's, if they don't win this game, I think they're in trouble. I think that's Cardiff gone. They've got Palace and Man United as their last 2 games. Now, Warnock could be looking at tonight's game against City thinking, you know what, we can go to Old Trafford and get something if we have to. But they've got to be in the running in order to go to Old Trafford and get something. And Brighton, they're only 3 points ahead, but Brighton have got such a big goal difference. It's virtually a 4-point lead Brighton have got. Cardiff have to win at Craven Cottage. I think if Cardiff don't win, I think then that's them done. Fulham have won their last 2 since relegation's confirmed. They've somehow won a couple, but they've come up against teams with not much to play for, really. They played Everton and Bournemouth. They're both safe and sound. Fulham are now away to come up against a team that will get down and dirty. I think Warnock will fancy chances. I'm going to go for an away win in this one, actually. I think Cardiff are going to get it, Gonzo.
Yeah, I think so. And as we'll discuss later, that's really going to play into the Burnley and Man City match, which is on the Sunday. But another 3 o'clock Saturday kickoff is a game that I know well because I lived down on the South Coast for 4 or 5 years. And believe it or not, there is a grudge match between Southampton and Bournemouth. The Southampton-Portsmouth one probably gets more of the national press exposure. But make no mistake about it, I've got a lot of friends who are Bournemouth fans and they desperately want to beat Southampton every time. So Southampton host the game and Bournemouth, obviously 2 teams. I think Southampton mathematically perhaps need 1 more point to be safe. Maybe I should check it out. I think they got 40 points, something like 40, 41 points when I looked. Oh no, so 37 points. Southampton need the win. It's Bournemouth that have got the 41 points. May well swing the balance there, Gio.
Yeah, I think the Saints will be fine. I've watched them quite a bit towards the end of the season, and we've obviously still got to play them as well. I don't know they got thumped by Newcastle, but that was sort of Newcastle hit them early, and then the game was over by halftime. And Rafa Benitez the second half, if you like, and the Saints didn't really have an answer. But they've looked good, Southampton. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll win against Bournemouth as well. They've won, 3 of their last 4 at home. They're starting to know how to play. He's got his 3-5-2 formation going on there as well. Ward-Prowse has been playing as a right wing back, which is really weird. But when you've got a cross as good as Ward-Prowse, and having him out on the width is exactly what a striker wants. Home win for me in this one, Gonzo.
Yeah, I agree. The win, the 5-0 win for Bournemouth sort of flatters to deceive. Actually, if you look at their form, it's pretty poor. And Southampton, as you alluded to, they've only lost 2 of their last 5 games. With it being at home, with them just needing those last 3 points to make it mathematically sure, I tend to agree with you there on that one, certainly, mate. The next fixture, again, 3 o'clock Saturday, we call it the FA Cup revenge fixture, if you like. It's Watford against Wolves. Watford maybe with one eye on something else, Gio?
Possibly, but if Watford want to guarantee Europa League football, they need to finish 7th, because Wolves will be thinking the opposite. Wolves will be thinking if we can beat Watford on Saturday and sort of nick 7th, then it means that Watford have to beat City in the final to get Europa League. I think these are 2 managers that would fancy Europa League football at their clubs. They're both like the idea. Brendan Rodgers has sort of alluded that he wouldn't mind Leicester City missing out on it, and we've sort of alluded as West Ham ready for it. I think these 2 managers will fancy their chances. This is sort of like the addition for 7th really into it. But as we're going to come on to, there's a couple of Everton will be looking at this one, and as will Leicester, thinking, hang on, if they draw this game, for example, it opens up. There's a battle for top. There's a battle for 3rd and 4th at the minute. Spurs should take 1, and then there's a battle for the bottom. There's also a battle for 7th here. Best of the rest is something that at the start of the season, we all, outside the top 6, we all want. We all say we can get 7th. That would be a really good season. So make no mistake about it, those 4 clubs in the running will be wanting to finish 7th, and this is a fantastic game for it. I'll tell you what, this is a game I might watch on Saturday afternoon, actually. I think this could be a tasty one.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you say about the best of the rest there, because obviously there's a very clear and defined top 6. You could break that down. You can break the league down however you want. You can say there's a clear and defined top 2. But the way I see it is there's a clear and defined top 6 with a massive gap. And then you've got 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. You've got the rest. You've got them 4 teams who are significantly, again, better than the rest. It's us in 11th. There's only 5 points in it or whatever it is, but the goal difference is massive. We are clearly not as good as Leicester, Everton, Watford, and Wolves, of course. So this is a very, very interesting game. I do wonder how much the FA Cup they're taking after the ball. Clearly, Wolves are still highly motivated, but you've got to bring fatigue into it as well. The old midweek fixtures as well. How much does that play into it? I'm going to go with Wolves, Gio, on this one. I think. Sorry, did you say who did you predict for this
I'm
one?
going to go for a draw. I think Watford have got places up for grabs for the final. If I was to say to you, name your Watford 11, you'll put 5 players in there. I'll give you Deeney, I'll give you Delafeu, Capoue, Decore. They're all starting, but I think the left back and right back spots are up for grabs. He's been switching about regularly enough. The centre backs, there's who's going to play midfield as well. Probably Will Hughes, but if you were a Watford player, you're thinking he could be nudged out of the team here a little bit. So there is places up for grabs there. I'm going to go for a draw because Wolves are very much they can do it against the top 6, but they keep. I know Watford aren't at the bottom, but they keep dropping points against teams in the bottom 6, and that's why Wolves are sort of where they are and not a little bit higher.
Yeah, and their recent form is identical. They've both lost 2, 1-2, and drawn 1 of their last 5. So that's no reason they're neck and neck in the same area of the league table. Last Saturday game, your evening kickoff, should we say, 5:30 live on BT Sport, is Brighton Hove Albion against Newcastle, and a big old trip for Newcastle there. So a long coach journey. I'm presuming coach journey. They might fly. Who knows? But Cardiff will be absolutely sick to the stomach with that. What was it? Christian Eriksen, 88th minute winner, I believe, Gio?
Yeah, something like that.
So I mean, Brighton are going to be. How are they going to respond? I've got a feeling they're going to come out fighting, and Chris Hughton knows how to send a team out to battle. They've got to get the points. I mean, the way this is played out though is because Cardiff, they're already going to know the Cardiff result. If Cardiff win, put pressure on Brighton, could be very different. If Cardiff get a draw, Brighton, the pressure's off. How do you see this one going?
This one's going to be boring, I think. Newcastle season's done now. That's them. Pack up shop. Happy days. I've watched the last 2 Brighton games, maybe 3. I've seen them play against Chelsea. Seen them play. I watched a decent bit of their game against Wolves when it was a 0-0, and then I seen them play the other night against Spurs, and they're just playing for 0-0s. Chris Hughton's literally just packing out the box and saying just grind out a 0-0. They didn't do it against Chelsea. They did it against Wolves somehow. They were close to doing it against Spurs. They're trying to play counter-attacking football, but they don't have the players with the ability nor the pace, really. I 35-year-old Glenn Murray cannot play counter-attacking football. But, Heaton, during the season, he's been trying to win games. It's not been working. So he's obviously decided, well, we'll just try and draw our way over the finish line. The Cardiff, like you said, knowing the Cardiff result's going to be huge, because if Cardiff win, Hughton is suddenly going to change his lineup a little bit. The mentality is going to change massively. The atmosphere will change. It'll be intense in there. The home crowd will be jittery. But if Cardiff lose, a point is enough for Brighton. 2 games to go, 4-point lead with a bigger goal difference as well. It's a 5-point lead essentially with 2 games to go. You'd imagine they'll scrape over the line. Huge game. I'm going to go for a home win. I think they're somehow going to, I don't know, I'm almost going to do a Rafa Benitez for this one, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a draw. I think at best for Brighton. I just think that the midweek game plays into fatigue levels. I think, what does that take out of you mentally? They must have been home and hosed, right? Sorry, what were you going to say?
Brighton did do 6 changes for midweek. I think Hughton's looking at this game as the banker, if you like. So against Spurs, there's 6 changes to the starting 11.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that will do something. I still think actually Rafa Benitez is going to Rafa Benitez Chris Hughton, if that makes any sense at all. I think it's going to be very, very hard for Brighton to win this game. I do think Newcastle's season is over in that sense, but I also do believe that Benitez is going to stay there next season. I think finally Mike Ashley might open the till and allow Rafa to get his sticky fingers on some of the cash inside it. And I do think some of that will be included from an amount to be promised. I think some of it will be from player sales, anything he can recoup. And I also think he'll get whatever he can attain from whatever league position he can move up. So I do think he's going to go there and play for something. And knowing Rafa is a very defensive manager, I think they possibly have enough to stop Brighton scoring. In fact, I think they certainly do. Moving on to the Sunday fixtures, and we have noon, Leicester against Arsenal. Now, this is very, very interesting. Of course, Arsenal, as we know, have just played this evening, just before we went live tonight. But also, I do believe they are then playing on the Thursday, Geo. And is that right? Is it they got the UEFA Cup on the Thursday, the Europa League?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so have they got one eye on that? You'd have to think so. I mean, the league is still tight, for top four. They're in fifth. It's six. They're on 66 points. Chelsea are on 67 points. They can still get top four from the league. They're not out of it. Even Man U, who have been in terrible form, are only one win behind Chelsea. So, those, you got three teams battling it out. You'd say Tottenham are safe. You have to for top four for Champions League at least. But we know Emery, he likes these competitions. He likes Europe. I just wonder how much of their focus is going to be on that. Leicester, they're all right. We've already established that they are a top 10 team and comfortable within it. How do you see this one going, G? I think it might be tough for Arsenal.
It's hard to call. Emery messed up massively by resting players against Crystal Palace. That came back to bite him in the arse big time. He's put out what I would consider to be his new first 11 tonight at Wolves. They've just got their pants pulled down. He's got the 11s the wrong way around. He should have had that first 11 out against Palace and tried to win the home game, and then rested a few tonight, thinking, we've got the points. I mean, later in the afternoon, Man U play Chelsea. That's massive for the top four battle. This will affect the Arsenal result. Emery will be wishing it was the other way around, so he can know the score of that, if you like. What's interesting, though, is we could have a strange scenario this season that if one of the English clubs win the Europa League, they obviously get Champions League as a prize. But one of the English clubs also win the Champions League. Fourth spot doesn't get Champions League football because you're only allowed 5 in the Champions League per country. So the Champions League winner gets it, Europa League winner gets it, and the top 3 get it. So fourth, it could be Man United. It could even be Arsenal and Chelsea win the Europa League. There's a small chance that fourth might not get Champions League football just now. So Emery, you'd forgive him for going for the Europa League as his priority, actually.
Yeah, and I wouldn't blame him for doing so because he's got a very, very good record in that competition. So, I think Leicester might nick this. I really do. I've got a hunch that they will. Moving on to the next fixture, which is Burnley against Man City. We alluded to it earlier. I just wonder how much of a favour. It does sound they won't think of it this way, but I wonder how much of a favour Tottenham did City by kicking them out of the Champions League. And I mean that for tonight's game against Manchester United and also this game. But as we spoke about earlier, if Cardiff win, then Burnley are going to really be up for this game. If Cardiff lose, I think it's a walkover for Man City. I think what's really benefited Man City as well is these are a couple of away games. Well, for anyone that knows that region, Burnley's, very, very close to Manchester. They've obviously played Manchester United. They've just got to go to Salford. They've not had to travel very far at all. So the fixtures have fallen kindly for them geographically. So yes, they've had a couple of away matches, but are they going to be knackered from travel? No. I do think a highly motivated Sean Dyche team who have done a little bit better of late. Well, they had to, let's be perfectly honest with you. They've had 3 wins and a draw in their last 5. So this is not a team in poor form at all. Unbeaten in their last 4, actually. If they've still got something to fight for, I could see them posing problems for Man City. It's roll over and have their tummy tickled. I do think if Cardiff have lost, though, Gio.
I think Burnley are fine. I think Burnley could lose their last 3 and still stay up. I think the draw at Stamford Bridge secured sort of another stay. They celebrate at full time like they believed they were staying up. You've seen Dyche, their way in. They were all bouncing. The players, you could see how happy they were. Tell you what, I think this game will be harder than the game that they just had at Old Trafford, to be honest with you. If there's one team I would not want to come up against when you in a situation like City, it's probably Burnley away right now. Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes up front are battering defenders, and we've just seen them play Christensen and David Luiz, 2 very good experienced centre backs, and Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes have really riled them up pretty early in the game. They were beating them in the air, etc. Then Chelsea started to lose their heads late on in the game. And you just thought Dyche done this bang on, and you do wonder because Dyche's a party pooper. He's not going to let his team just hand City the title, is he? He won't care who wins the title out of City and Liverpool. It won't bother him in the slightest. All he cares about is, getting points on the board, because to a club like Burnley, a couple of places higher in the league, which is 5 million or something, that's a player for Burnley. If a Burnley fan's tuning in, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that is a player for Burnley. You can go out there and buy a player for 5 million that could do all right in your squad, at very least be on your bench and stuff. You're still playing Bill Barsley occasionally at right back. 5 million is a lot for Burnley. So I almost went to go for a draw for this one. I think City will do it, but I think this is going to be one tough game for them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. I do think they're going to absolutely, give it 100%. And in terms of the 5 million, they could, in fact, get half a Jordan Hugo for that money. Or in the current exchange rate, maybe a full Jordan Hugo as a deputy to Chris Wood, maybe. As something maybe Sean Dyche might want to consider, and that would boost West Ham's transfer kitty, of course, which would then give us 10 million to spend in the summer transfer window, which would be lovely. Just coming on to the last fixture, we've come full circle here, and it's Manchester United at home again, and they are facing Chelsea. Now, my own thoughts on this are, I just think it's a Chelsea win. I think that was it. I think they played the ace up their sleeve tonight. I think Man United had a spanking. I think he'd have given the talk. He tried his mind games on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and he got a performance from the City rivals. So they played a little bit better. But I think that was as good as it got, but it still wasn't good enough. And I don't know if anybody watching the game, you saw when Martial came on. He came on straight away and started sulking. If you watch his body language when he came on, he just came on. He'd been taking body language lessons from Marko Arnautovic. I think he looked completely miserable, completely disinterested, and I just think there's a lot rotten at that club, and I don't think they're going to get it right. I think Chelsea, although they're not happy with Sarri ball and this, that, and the other, they also have something to fight for in Europe as well. They're also fighting for top 4, and they do actually look a little bit better than Manchester United. So I think it'd be an away win here, Gio.
How far have these two clubs fallen? This used to be a title. This used to be like the title decider. Not that many years ago. Now this is like the 6th place decider. Who doesn't want to finish 6th? It's embarrassing for both clubs. And the funny thing is, I was thinking earlier about how Mourinho said finishing 2nd with Man United was the greatest achievement he's had as a manager, and you thought he was taking the piss at the time. But actually, you look at tonight's thing, you think actually he was right. And it's a very similar story with Chelsea. Conte said it. Conte said, I've only got 2 players that's good enough for Champions League at this club. I need better players. And everyone said, you're wrong. It's you that's the problem. Right? You go, well, actually, turns out the manager was right. And it's the same thing at Man United. Mourinho said, these players are not good enough. Everyone laughed at him and said, they're good players. Work what you've got. He's gone. Now, all of a sudden, everybody goes, well, actually, it is the players. When a managers of the caliber of Mourinho and Conte say something, you should probably listen a little bit. And they're starting to pay for it now, because both clubs have now got a manager of lesser ability, and they've got a worse situation on their hands in terms of the squad. So that's what you get if you're not going to back your manager, though. If you're not going to support him, and you're going to let player power come into the game, because that's what both of these clubs are. Both of these clubs, this is a battle of player power at the weekend. Is it possible for both teams to finish -1 score? Is it possible if they both score an own goal? Because that's what could happen. This game is hard to call because, I've seen sometimes I've watched Man U play this season away to Spurs, thought they were absolutely fantastic, brilliant. But I watched them tonight and you just think, that's the worst I've seen City play all season, perhaps that first half of football. They couldn't string passes together. Man U had 1 shot on goal, if that. Goodison Park, awful. Chelsea, against Burnley, they were rotten as well. But I think you're right about this. I think Chelsea will win it. But the question is, there's 2 world-class players supposedly on the pitch on Sunday afternoon. Pogba, Hazard. Is either of them going to turn up? I think Hazard might. I think Higuain's also looking decent. He scored an absolute belter against. Right. That was a goal. If Sergio Aguero scored that, everybody would have been going on and on and on about it because it's Higuain. And everyone sort of ignored it a little bit. Very underrated strike. Loftus-Cheek is doing what Pogba should be doing at the minute, really bossing the midfield with his strength. So I'm going to go for Chelsea win as well. I agree with you on this one, Gonzo.
Yeah, I love that strike. It was like a Marco van Basten strike that was from Higuain, proper striker's goal, and if they can get out a tune out of him, then great. But in Hazard, they do have the one world-class player on display, and even if Sarri, the players are sort of down in tools, Hazard can still pull something out of the hat. There were times I looked at United tonight and I thought they haven't got a clue how to attack. At one point, the commentator said they're struggling to score goals from open play. We know that ourselves from West Ham from playing them recently, of course. But I did look, there was a point when Pogba was on the edge of the area, and I thought, you don't have a clue. The movement was terrible, and they'd actually got a free kick from it. But I thought it was so telegraphed, it was so obvious what they were trying to do. They were lucky that they got a free kick and a foul out of it, quite frankly. Anyway, that basically rounds up. We've put the boot into Man United a little bit, haven't we? But hey ho, this is a West Ham channel. We can do what we want on that score. Talking about West Ham, just to repeat what I said at the start of the show, we are playing Spurs. We're playing them. That's the early Saturday kick-off. It's West Ham's first trip to the new and improved White Hart Lane. It still remains to be seen, which I'll find out myself, if they will be serving beer through their new upside-down beer filling terminals.
There's no alcohol for away fans on Saturday.
Oh, you're joking.
No, honestly.
Are you serious?
I'm being serious. I promise you. Andy Sheldon put out on Twitter earlier saying that the away end's not getting sold beer, so there's no bottoms up for you on Saturday. So that lovely machine you were looking forward to, you ain't getting to see it.
I'll have a Ribena. I'll say to the lady, I'll have 2 pints of Ribena, please, love. Filled up from the bottom up. I won't. I'll go to the pub first. But anyway, so I'll be looking forward to that. Slightly less now, it has to be said, but the rest of us will all be looking forward to the game from a tactical and analytical point of view tomorrow night, 7 o'clock on the Hammers Chat channel. Please do tune in, join us in the comments below here. Please tell us what you think. Give us your predictions of the up and coming. It's going to get sorted out this weekend, isn't it? I think someone's going to slip up. Might it be Liverpool? Might it be Man City? Are Cardiff going to make it safe? Are they going to make it squeaky bum time? Tune in to find out. Please do click subscribe if you're new on both channels, and I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Yeah, tomorrow night.